Hello, Smart Community friends, and a big hello to our listeners in Israel. You are this month's top countries for the most episode downloads. I'm back with another bonus episode of the Smart Community podcast, sharing various guest answers to the question, where to next for smart cities and communities? And this time I'm sharing with you the answers from these guests. Emma Weston from episode 260, Ghazaleh Ghoreishi from episode 261, Nicci Rossouw from episode 262, and finally Laila Al Hadhrami from episode 263. Some themes that come through in the guest answers are around fluidity between rural and urban areas, embracing the differences in our rural communities, placing people at the centre of our communities, and increasing the quality of life for people. More diversity and fluidity in communities allows for better connection between rural and urban areas. And starting these conversations now about bridging the gaps between the two is really important. We also don't want to see any communities miss the opportunities to improve the quality of life for people, and placing people at the centre of smart communities to make decisions about why they are important and want to improve their quality of life. This is really crucial. As Emma Weston says, when it comes to rural and regional, what we don't want is this reignition that COVID has given to our rural and regional areas to be a passing blip. We want to be able to see this as a launching pad to an integration point between urban and rural areas. As always, we hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it.
Welcome to the smart community, smart regions, smart towns, and smart cities. It's where we live, work, and play. With smart communities, the future starts today. Big data, smart mobility, emerging trends galore. The Smart Community Podcast is what you're looking for.
Where to next for smart cities and communities?
Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well, particularly when it comes to, love to pick your brains, probably separately than the podcast. But, when it comes to rural and regional, what we don't want is this reignition that COVID has given to our rural and regional areas to be a passing blip. We want to be able to, I think, see this as a launching pad to an integration point between urban and rural. And so I think what's next is, how can smart communities be a bridge rather than be confined locales or almost act like gated communities where you can't get in and you can't get out. So I'm really interested in this idea of fluidity between communities and bridge making and bridge building. And I hope that is what is next, because I think that is what will enable the conversation to continue, and it will enable more diverse conversations to happen, which I think is also important for what's next.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think it's a really great point, and something I've spoken on a bit around, well, what can a community do? There's a couple of things in your question there, but like, what can a community do to keep those, what we call flea changes? And, once the novelty of living in a small country town wears off, I grew up in Roma in Queensland. Once that wears off, you want to be able to then, how can people connect in with the level of employment that they had before? But also they want the quirkiness. So instead of hiding the quirkiness, embrace the quirkiness. And then also for local government, thinking about, well, if I've got all these like new people that maybe have knowledge-based jobs, maybe they know a little bit about data, how do I bring them in and to the government so we can make better decisions with data, or start thinking about the data sources we have available, thinking about the types of things that people want. And I think sometimes we think data technology, big dollars, but actually it doesn't have to be. And I think if we start small and start, bringing people in that, from all different types of communities, and it's not a border, like it's not this hard border. Talk a lot about that with like regional councils. We're not competing, actually. We're just embracing the different quirkiness of each one. And then people will, like you said, fluidly move in between. I had a really great conversation with someone, an artist, a technology artist last week, and she was talking about the squishiness of smart communities. And so it adapts and changes for what people actually need and want at the time. And I just loved that because it really brought it back to something like kind of cute to think about as well, but that human element of it as well. And like that it's not just one thing and a physical thing or a solid thing. It will move and it will change. It doesn't really answer the question. And I think we need to talk a lot more about this and some specific, kind of key examples. But I think there's so much we can do if we start embracing and start having these conversations, because like you were just talking about earlier, having this idea, someone can pick that up and then move that and shift it. And it's amazing how, it ripples out across our whole community. And, the fact that one industry, even one maybe high level income can actually really change a whole community. And yeah, it's something that I love talking about, and I've had a lot of people on the podcast about. So let's definitely continue this conversation at another time.
Love to do that.
So where to next for smart cities and communities?
Where to next? I have said I really think of that as the steps of going to the topper parts of our ladder. If you concentrated on that topic, people are starting with the consultation, but they're going to the delegation of power and citizen control. So I think this smart city will help them unleash their powers to become really part of the process of making their cities and planning for their cities. And no one can force them to accept those times that the people were forced to something like the renovation in the cities, or some replace them in the richer parts by the authority. So I think we will achieve the topper steps. For example, we can achieve soon the delegation of power, especially countries that we have more democracy will get there very, very soon, if the data is available for all lessons in all forms.
So thinking more about that participation and the shifting on power into the hands of the community. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, the shifting the power is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I think it's something that, like you said, it's like when we have greater access and we're informed and we can use the technology that's available and we can understand what data we're sharing with whom, really shifting that power then back to the citizens to make decisions about what it is and what they don't want in our cities and communities.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
Where to next for smart cities and communities?
Look, I think it's becoming far more a topic of discussion. I noticed, councils, it's out there, how do we plan cities, how many trees? I think I read something about Sydney wanting to enforce that you have to have a tree planted in a new community, which of course I'm absolutely for, because I think trees are an essence of life and everyone should just go out and plant a tree at least once a year somewhere in a park or in your own property if you can. I think it's an evolving space, and I think it's very important to keep people educated, because I think it makes such a huge difference to our quality of life. And when your quality of life is good and you feel connected to the community that you're living in, again, the word community, people involved, it becomes, you behave yourself because the community knows you, you've got face value to lose if you're doing things you shouldn't doing. It's more integrated. So, yeah, I think it's a fantastic space, Zoe, and I'm delighted that you're in the forefront of it, pushing it.
Thank you. It is a fun space to be in, but also a space I see changing too. And I think when you talk about councils there, and I was having this conversation just yesterday around this, it's like it becomes an essential service. Like having that approach, having a smart community approach where things are integrated, things work, we're using technology as a tool, we're using data to make decisions where appropriate, we're thinking about privacy and security, we're protecting our citizens, we're meeting their needs. These are essential things. They're not add-ons. And I think that's when we start to have conversations where it's not a conversation of, and I don't think innovation is an add-on necessarily, but maybe the terminology has been used like, oh, well, that's something we do when we've got time or money or space or resources. No, we need to do it right now. And I think that's what COVID has shown us, that some of these things that were in the pipeline or even pipe dream pipeline had to be done immediately because it was absolutely essential that people were able to work from home if that's what their role was, that, you know, things continued to progress, that services will still be able to be offered because people needed them, and they're not there for fun. They are there because people actually need them. Yeah. So I think that's a really key point that you just made around that. And I think we're having different conversations now, and we'll continue to shift and change.
Look, I think, just the connectivity issue, like we're very well aware, not everyone in Australia has got the same connectivity, and it impacts hugely on their quality of life. Like today, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like I think the internet, like where's the internet and how many gigabytes have you got? Like that's now, never mind food or anything else, because you can order your food in, but like your internet is crucial to how you live. And strangely enough, my new neighbor has not got an email address and he doesn't have the internet at his house. And I look at him with absolute wonder and look and just think, how do you navigate your world? But he seems perfectly happy and fine to me. So, you know, it's there, but the difference is it's there for him if he wants it. He chooses not to have it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. It's the choice, and being able to live that, you know, access those. And again, it's a basic service. It's connectivity as a human right is something I've been talking about since COVID. It's like these are the things that are needed because particularly when everyone was locked down or continues to be locked down, like that's your connection to the outside world, and not in a just like, oh, it's fun to connect with people. No, that's how you get services. That's how you pay bills. That's how you access the doctor, etc. All those things, which is really important.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, talk about doctors. We're now on Zoom with our doctors. So anyway, but the one good thing for COVID or for Zoom out of COVID is their shares have skyrocketed because now everyone knows what Zoom is.
Yes. Thanks, Zoom, for keeping up and pushing. I mean, we had Zoom before COVID, so then everyone's like, "Oh, have you heard of Zoom?" I was like, "Yeah."
No, we've been using Zoom for a while, but okay.
We've got that. Where to next for smart communities?
Well, it's going to be sustainable. It is the one that's going to improve our lives. So a big salute to the smart communities, because I consider it the base of smart cities. Smart cities are a big concept. A smart community is driving these smart cities with the people, the passion of people in these communities.
The Smart Community podcast is brought to you by My Smart Community. If you're trying to deal with disruption, not sure what technologies to buy, need to facilitate genuine collaboration, then we can help. Email hello@mysmart.community or head to www.mysmart.community/consulting.
Thanks so much for listening to the Smart Community Podcast. Show notes for this episode and all other episodes are available on our website, mysmart.community/podcast. If you have any questions for us or any of our guests, you can email hello@mysmart.community. You can also find us on the socials. We are on LinkedIn and Twitter @SmartComHQ. That's com with 2 M's. If you are enjoying the podcast, please hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we would love for you to leave us a rating and review at wherever you listen. This really helps us reach more ears and eyes, so thank you for your support. As always, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it.
The Smart Community Podcast is what you're looking for.